New research finds activities that account for up to 30% of hours worked across the U.S. could become automated by 2030. Office support, food service, and customer service employment are among jobs that could see a sharp decline in hours for Americans. Kweilin Ellingrud joins us now. She's a partner and director of the McKinsey Global Institute and one of the authors of this research. Kweilin, help us understand how a shift to more automated work will play out in the U.S. in the coming years.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, Ed, I think a combination of generative AI with automation broadly, which has been accelerating certainly since COVID, and then also the impact of COVID-19 overall on jobs. When you pull all of that together, that's going to automate or have the potential to automate about 30% of the hours spent on tasks in the United States. And that's affecting the full spectrum of jobs, everything from high-end, high-wage jobs, which is why I think it's gotten so much press over the last few months, as well as lower-end jobs. What we found was actually lower-wage jobs, below $38,000 a year in the United States, are actually 14 times more likely to be eliminated. So while all of our jobs will likely be changed, given the 30% of tasks, most of the ones on the higher end will just change. They won't be completely automated or eliminated the way they will on the lower end range of wages.
I think what sort of concerns people is not that, technology will give rise to maybe different types of jobs, but how quickly it's happening. As you point out, that the pandemic helped to sort of push industries into automation that maybe would have taken a few more years to get there. And then we have how advanced AI seems to be getting. I mean, every month there's something that, and how accessible it is. More than advanced, it's how accessible it is. But that can also be good news. So some jobs are going to be actually enhanced by AI. Can we talk a little bit about those jobs that will be made easier and better because of it?
Absolutely. I think some examples of jobs, there's lots, right? A graphic designer will get a first version of a graphic design much more quickly. It'll be better. And then they can use the specialized skills that they've built and spend their time in the most valuable ways. A nurse also will spend less time keying in and rekeying in medication, spend more time with their patients. And so I think a lot of jobs actually will be made more meaningful. You'll be able to spend more time doing the things that your training, your skills have enabled you to uniquely do. There is, though, the other end of that spectrum of jobs that will be completely eliminated.
Yeah, and it's telling that most of those are lower wage jobs, which is going to be even more problematic on the economy overall. You point out that the pandemic has shifted a bunch of jobs. Is there a good example from your study of how AI has now been applied to a certain occupation since the pandemic?
Yeah, I think, since the pandemic, we've actually seen almost 9 million occupational shifts. And that's dramatic because that's about 50% higher than it was pre-pandemic. So a much higher rate of occupational churn in our job market since COVID. For us to achieve generative AI benefits and actually get to that 30% that we were talking about before, over the next 7 years, by 2030, we'd actually have to achieve another 12 million occupational shifts. So that high rate of occupational transitions would have to continue. That's a lot. But examples of where that occurs: customer service and sales, for sure. Food service, so our food, a food truck kiosk or in a fast food restaurant. We've all interacted, I think, now with these fast food kiosks where you order, which enables them to operate a single site with far fewer employees than they did before. And I think some of those shifts, as well as shifts towards online ordering, we've seen a lot of job growth actually in delivery. And so you see things that used to be in person and have some physical interactive element shifting to online, remote, and a lot more delivery jobs as well.
I think what's also interesting about the study is you're talking about 2030. It's not very far away, right? And when I think of massive labor shifts, I just keep thinking about the kids in college and whether or not they're actually being prepared for a labor market that's going to shift sort of under their feet. Is the government sort of thinking in the right way about how to ensure, like Ed said, that, there are jobs for people and that they are trained and educated for these jobs?
Yeah, I think that's a great thing that both government private institutions, but also educational institutions can help our students prepare for, right? The good news is we will have more jobs in the future. That's the great news. Those jobs will, in fact, be higher wage jobs on average. We've seen that coming out of COVID, but they will also require higher levels of education. And how do we best match the skills and, the talents that we have today to the jobs that we will have in the future? Those skills will be different. I think what we know now is everyone will need more of two types of skills. One is technological skills, as we've been talking about. Not necessarily can you code, but can you interact with technology in an effective way to get your job done more effectively? We will also need social and emotional skills, right? Because that's the one thing, or one of the few things that cannot be replicated by a machine or AI as well, at least as of now.
I was going to say,
so
yeah.
can I be But we'll see in the future. But can I read a human reaction and react accordingly, right? Can I show empathy? There's elements of that cannot be automated away. And so I think if we can build those two skills more deeply and broadly in our talent base, we'll be well equipped for this future with Gen AI.
Wow, it's fascinating and it's changing rapidly. Kweilin Ellingrud, thank you.
Thank you.